I think music is a transformative piece of technology that we have. It's a communicator. It will move all our molecules around and reassemble us into something new. And we do it together. If you're at home listening to a record by yourself, that's one thing. But when you're in a room full of people, and it's really important that you actually don't know all the people in the room. That's what being in a larger community is, right? And you're having this experience together, and you're changed by that experience together. There's absolutely some kind of imperceptible shift that happens. Sometimes it can be very powerful. Music has been prescribed as a form of healing for thousands of years across all kinds of cultures. And I really see it that way. I see it as medicine. I see it as a way to celebrate what it is to be human, and a way also to parse through our emotions, whatever we might be feeling personally and collectively. I think there's something really special when a musician is coming from another country, from another culture, and they don't really know what they're coming into, and all they have is themselves and their music, and they get on stage and they interact with the audience that came that day. That is a very special thing. It really gives me hope whenever it happens. It gives me hope that like collectively we can live together, we can sort out our problems together. When we can do that, it's like a ritual for me of being human together in a way that transcends cultural difference, and that to me is very sacred. It happens every time an artist arrives from somewhere else.
Hello, friends. It's Donna Bell, your host of To Hum is Human, a podcast where we explore the transformative power of tuning into our intuition to express our passionate purpose. I'm so happy you're here. In this episode, Listening Across Borders, Music, Art, and the Secret Planet, we explore what happens when creativity is treated not as a product, but as a living ecosystem, one that thrives on trust, surprise, and communal presence. I'm so excited to introduce my next guest. Edo Mor is an artist, curator, and co-creator of Secret Planet, a borderless discovery-based music series built on a farm share model where audiences receive sound the way you might receive a harvest, with openness, curiosity, and faith. Edo and his partner Rosario, an Argentine-born glass artist, have developed a rare practice that bridges continents, materials, and frequencies, from kiln-fired glass that captures light with a living ocean to music events that dissolve the idea of genre altogether. Edo invites us into a world where art is less about performance and more about shared transformation. Together, we'll talk about migration as a creative force, glass as a language, listening as belonging, and what it means to tend to culture the way one might tend to a garden, with care, attention, and just the right amount of wildness. Welcome, Edo.
Thanks for having me, Donabelle. That was a beautiful introduction. I think you've clearly thought more
Thank
deeply than I have maybe about what I'm doing.
Well, take us through your creative journey, if you can, when you were first pulled to work with glass.
Yeah, I guess I do a couple different things that are very different from each other. I've been working with my partner Rosario in glass for about 25 years now. I also do this music series, which is very much two different things. So I guess let's talk about glass. I was 20 years old and I was writing fiction. I was a novelist and I had this novel idea. It was a romance novel, really. It was like a historical romance novel set in the time of the Hundred-Year War in northern Spain and southern France. It was all about this Jewish clandestino. He's sort of hiding his Jewish identity because of complicated reasons, and using his identity, he identifies himself as a pilgrim walking along the Camino Santiago, which is in the north of Spain, and people would walk from all parts of Europe, and especially from France in that period. And so he pretends he's a Christian, basically. And during the novel, he falls in love with this Christian woman. And I went to Europe to write that novel. On the way, I met someone from Argentina. Her name was Rosario, and I fell in love with her. So I didn't actually end up writing the novel, but it sort of happened to me. She had come to Spain from Argentina with a practice of making jewelry out of glass using recycled window glass. And she had a bag full of these earrings that she'd brought with her, and she was selling them to travel with. And I was just interested in her and traveling with her at first. But we ended up spending quite a lot of time in Spain. I was going to teach English or something, and then it was much more interesting to make glass with her. She brought this little kiln. It was about the size of a shoebox. We would get scrap glass from places where they would cut out windows. And we had all these little jars filled with these enamel oxides, and we would paint the glass and make these earrings. And then we would sell them sort of in a very gypsy style on the beach, in bars. And I was writing at the same time and learning Spanish. It was great. That's how I got started in glass. We never stopped. We're still going.
What a beautiful story. It's so romantic, actually. I didn't know that about you, you too. But I love the metaphor for glass because glass is both fragile and resilient. And so is live music to some extent. Now, I know you split your life between firing glass and curating global music experiences. What is the thread that connects these seemingly different mediums for you?
That's an interesting question. I think that music has been in my own personal life just a guiding force for as long as I can remember. And when I met Rosario, the same for her. So often our studio sessions, we would work for hours and listen to music for hours and dance in the studio. And over the years, I had a lot of time to listen while I was working, listen to a lot of music and moved to this area in Northampton, partially because there was some kind of a music scene here I was curious about. I think the connection is very interstitial. I think you're picking up on this in your podcast is that intuition and following after something, it's really as simple as when you're in a jungle and there's a butterfly going by and you just all you want to do is follow it because it's this beautiful radiant thing. That's all it is, whether it's writing or visual art or
Mm.
something going through your ears created by another human.
When you say that music was such a big part of your life, can you go into that a little bit more? I'd love to know what you were listening to when you were younger, or what did you grow up listening to music, or you're a musician?
Yeah, so I'm not a musician. I have done a lot of listening over my life. I moved to the US from Germany when I was 9. I was born in Israel, left when I was 6. And then from about 9, I was in California and there was this incredible public library. It was 3 stories. And at the very top of it, there was this mezzanine where there was all these CD racks. And it was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that. There's music from everywhere, all kinds of things. It was this thing called jazz. It's 4 letters, but it seemed to incorporate a lot of different things. There was another section that was called World, and it had music from everywhere, and it all sounded different. And I would go home with like stacks of CDs, and I would listen to them all. This was like to complement reading. I was reading a lot of books that were on the first and second floors of this library. Being omnivorous from an early age is what led me to continuing to listen to music throughout my life. It's like a process of sort of continual discovery.
I know that your journey has taken you from Germany to Israel, and of course, Rosario from Argentina to Spain, and both of you in Spain. And now your work lives in Western Massachusetts. How has movement between continents shaped your inner landscape? And how does that show up in the glass and perhaps in the music curation?
I feel like I've lived here now more than anywhere else in my life, but I don't really feel like I'm from here in a way. I don't think I get to feel like I'm from anywhere anymore. I feel like I'm from everywhere. My identity is bound to Israel, but I have very complicated feelings about Israel. And I do feel like I'm a Jew in diaspora again. What that means as someone living here, I think, is that I maybe am a bit more fluent than others in picking up on international currents and have international connections. And so it's really a privilege to share those connections with people here who are very much appreciative. It's been really easy to build a community for this kind of music here. I think people are really interested in it and I really care. It's a kind of ambassadorship. Once you've lived in different places and interacted with different kinds of people, you realize we're all human. We're all
Mhm.
pretty much the same. We have these subtle different ways we create beauty in the world. Music is one of the primary forms of that.
I have to agree. I'm a music lover myself. There's something when you are in a place when sound and vibration just hits your form in your body and moves through you. There's something very alchemical that happens just in experiencing that kind of frequency and wavelength. Now, Secret Planet runs on a farm share model where people don't even know what they're signing up for until the night of the show. And I love that. There's this surprise and wonder about what's going to happen. Sometimes when people think about going to a show, some people think, well, I'm just going to a show. But you kind of consider it a communal ritual. Why do you build the music experience based on this trust and surprise rather than expectation?
It's one of the most exciting things I feel about the series is that I do see musical experience as going from one side of the spectrum. It's very nostalgia based. It's based on what you've already heard, what you've already experienced, and it's very powerful stuff, right? When people go see a cover band and they hear the same song they've heard for 20 years, but it's so powerful to them. And that's a very rich experience. And on the other side of the spectrum is a completely discovery based experience where you have no idea what you're experiencing. None at all, but it's pushing some kind of buttons inside you and it's completely novel. In Secret Planet's about that side of experience, maybe 90%, 10% of nostalgia.
Well, I have to admit, I do love the element of surprise because there's something about being in that moment of curiosity and coming into a space knowing that. And I know you've built a reputation by curating shows at Bombyx Center for Arts and Equity through either Laudable Productions and other places, but you have created a stage, if you will, of the quality of types of music that you bring in. You do bring in those people who go to your shows at Secret Planet will know that it will be quite an amazing selection of music and performers and musicians that you bring in. Do you believe that how we listen can shift culture?
100%. I think music is a transformative piece of technology that we have. It's a communicator. It will move all our molecules around and reassemble us into something new. And we do it together. If you're at home listening to a record by yourself, that's one thing. But when you're in a room full of people, and it's really important that you actually don't know all the people in the room, that's what being in a larger community is, right? And you're having this experience together. You're changed by that experience together. There's absolutely some kind of imperceptible shift that happens. Sometimes it can be very powerful. Music has been used as a medicinal prescription. It's been prescribed as a form of healing for thousands of years across all kinds of cultures. And I really see it that way. I see it as medicine. I see it as a form, a way to celebrate what it is to be human, and a way also to parse through our emotions, whatever we might be feeling personally and collectively.
It's a very visceral experience when you feel what's happening around you. And as that experience with other people, I definitely resonate with that. And I love that you create these spaces for that transformation to happen. So much of what you do, from sourcing artists to building trust in the way in the performances you create and then holding space, most of that is unseen. What parts of the process feel the least visible but the most sacred to you?
I think there's something really special when a musician is coming from another country, from another culture, and they don't really know what they're coming into. All they have is themselves and their music, and they get on stage and they interact with the audience that came that day. That is a very special thing. It really gives me hope whenever it happens. It gives me hope that collectively we can live together, we can sort out our problems together. It's like a ritual for me of being human together in a way that transcends cultural difference. That to me is very sacred and very simple and very, like you said, it's kind of unseen, right? It happens every time an artist arrives from somewhere else. And sometimes they've had a tough tour and they're struggling. And I really take a lot of joy out of supporting them through whatever they're going through and helping that connection be as clean and pure as possible with the audience. And I guess also, I think the trust that it's like, I think you mentioned loyalty and trust. And I think that's also a really beautiful thing that builds over time and it's totally invisible. But it means that we can do this thing. Like you can come to an event and have no idea what it's about and have an experience. And the reason you got there was because of trust. So having that trust with the community is really important as well. And I think it's, like you said, it's not one of the most obvious parts of what I do.
What assumptions, Edo, do people often bring to world music, quote unquote, world music? And how do you gently unspool those through experience rather than explanation?
I like how you put that in quotation marks because the whole premise of calling something world music has been challenged a lot within the industry for a while. It started out in the 90s and when we still had CD shops and you would go into the CD shop. I went into the library when I was a kid and they would need to have a place to put all these things that weren't familiar. And they would all go in the same bucket, even though they contained a multitude of different worlds. David Byrne from the Talking Heads wrote a very famous op-ed in the New York Times when he was talking about quote unquote world music and saying 99% of the music in the world is being bucketed into quote unquote world music. it's not a tag at all. It doesn't describe it at all. And so we're much better off going specifically into, okay, this is North African psych rock from Niger performed by women, and they're pulling from these other musical folk traditions that are different from when men are playing. Or we can talk about cumbia from Peru in the 60s, which was inspired by surf music. There's all these incredible stories that we are putting back on the shelf and ignoring when we call it world music. So
Mm.
I like to immediately say that it's music from other places, it's music from everywhere, and it is specifically this. It is Balkan folk music or Turkish psychedelic rock or Afro-Latin cumbia from Colombia. Just trying to describe it.
You've used the phrase borderless listening, and I love the name Secret Planet. Could you speak about how that came to be? And even on a human level, what does borderless listening mean to you?
First of all, Borderless, I think, is a place we can imagine in our minds when we strip away all the sort of these dividing lines that have been artificially placed on us, right, by history and society. And then we can see a landscape that is filled with all these incredible iterations of musical creativity. So that's, I think, Borderless. And then Secret Planet was penned by a really important colleague I have in New York City called Olivier Conan. He owns a little bar called Barbez in Park Slope. And he's originally from France. He moved to the States like 25 years ago, 30 years ago. And he's been tirelessly programming all the kinds of music that you might find in my music series for that period in this little bar. There's like 2 shows a night, every night of the year. And there's a showcase he would put on with another colleague from DC, James Thompson. Electric Cowbell is his record label. They put on this showcase called Secret Planet for about 10 years in January. Music industry people from all over the world come to New York. They can go to the Secret Planet showcase and see some really cool curation. And I approached them and suggested that we make a regional musical syndicate out of it. And we connect up some of our other colleagues in different cities. And we all start these Secret Planet shows. That's what's been going on. There's folks in Richmond, Virginia now, State College, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, DC, New York City. And I think someone in Cape Cod is making some noise about starting a Secret Planet there.
Wow, so
Yeah.
cool. So, how does it work for our listeners who've never heard of approaching a music series as a farm share? Can you explain
Mm.
the whole concept of that, please?
Yeah, we're just borrowing great ideas from each other all the time, right? That idea came from Glenn Siegel, who is also here in the Valley and runs an incredible music series called Jazz Shares. She's been doing it for 10 years, I think, for a long time. It was basically this idea that this kind of music is really hard to present without some sort of structured support early in the season that allows you to confirm all these different artists. Jazz Shares runs on sort of a member plan like mine. I think the main difference is that with my member share, there's no like seasonal expiration. So you buy a bundle of tokens. They're like these little wooden tokens, and you can bring them to the show and use those for admission, but they don't have an expiration. So you could use them this year or next year. I wanted to make it really easy for people to buy into the idea with also the understanding that I book a lot of different kinds of music. So maybe one season people are not really as into the curation. Another season they're more like, oh, this is my jam. So but yeah, that's how it works. It's really easy. People tend to like it.
That's pretty incredible. And the fact that they can choose almost like a menu. You're like, well, here's what's in season this year and
Hmm.
be willing to partake in this particular season. And if it doesn't work out, try the next season. Every season brings different things. And the vast array of types of music you bring is quite astonishing. It's music I've never heard in this area or any other places that I've been. So I have to commend you for the incredible depth and variety that you bring to this area because it's so much richer for that. Just beautiful, beautiful work that
Hmm.
I've witnessed. Have you personally experienced or seen a moment during a Secret Planet show where a listener visibly crossed some inner threshold? Like someone caught off guard by joy or grief or awe. Have you encountered anything
Mm.
like that during your
Oh,
performances?
absolutely. I think it happens almost every show we do. It's beautiful. I sometimes see someone who's an 18 or 19-year-old who reminds me of me when I was that age and experienced something like that for the first time. So that feels like a real sort of giving forward when I see that. That makes me really feel my place in the process when you see this other version of yourself who's having a similar experience. But then there's moments of incredible joy. People are dancing and they've entered some kind of a trance. I'm really interested in artists who are bringing some kind of transformative experience. And often that is in dance. And sometimes it comes from kind of some kind of trance tradition, whether it's from South America, from Africa. There's a lot of incredibly powerful and beautiful traditions of trance that induce people into these transformational states. That's exactly what they're supposed to do. By 40 minutes in, half the room is just like,
In another
uh,
place and state of consciousness. Absolutely. And I love that you noticed someone who kind of reminded yourself of you being at that age and witnessing something so moving and inspiring. Do you believe listening can be a form of belonging or even activism?
absolutely. Listening to me is participating in the world. I think that if you choose not to listen, maybe you're doing it defensively because you're trying to protect yourself. It is the way we engage with the world around us. Is one of our senses that we use. I think that moment, again, going back to this idea that we're all the way on the discovery based side of things, we're experiencing something new. That is a moment where you really are opening yourself up to new experiences. We do it when we taste new food. We do it when we hear new music. We do it like in a more subtle, energetic level when we're collectively in a room and everyone is experiencing it. Something else there that is transpersonal, right?
Mm,
That is happening. And it's mostly entering people through their ears and vibrations, which are felt.
absolutely. I mean,
Mm,
being a sound practitioner myself, I know how vibration can move through us. I mean, we're 70% water. We are natural conductors of sound.
mm,
Vibration moves through us and all our cells and fluids and water in our systems and our body. It's like we just resonate and generate when
mm,
we listen to music. It's quite
mm,
profound. And so much
mm,
healing can be done through that because you're right. We're restructuring the water in our bodies by listening to this frequency and harmony of coherence. Now, just a little bit about going back to your glass because your glass pieces emerge from a slow process involving materials and fire and patience. How has working with glass informed the way you curate human experiences through Secret Planet?
I feel like my approach to glass is very methodical. Has to be. Otherwise, it's a mess. It comes out of the kiln. Partly experimental, like what happens if you put this and this together and we add this on. It's all enamels and metals reacting with each other. And then there's the transformational moment is happening in the kiln once all the methodical stuff has happened and you sort of put it in and you turn it on and you cross your fingers a little bit and you're like, okay, we'll see. Running Secret Planet's just like that in a way. From the first conversation you have with an artist or a manager, first time you hear a line of music, to the actual reality of that artist coming here and getting on stage and whatever they're going through, whatever your audience is going through. And that moment is like glass has its melting point, right? And when it hits that melting point, then everything sort of happens all at once in there. And then it cools back down and it turns back into this substance that we're very familiar with that is hard and inert and doesn't seem to change at all. And so that transformative moment is that moment on stage.
Mm,
And there's the before and the after.
it's beautiful alchemy, right? You're
It's
taking
it's alchemical.
these beautiful, simple materials in many ways, and then through their transformation become something so beautiful and resonant, just like working with these musicians and collaborating. And I
Mm.
would love to talk a little bit about collaboration because you and Rosario work as life partners and co creators and parents and artists. How do you navigate creation when collaboration itself becomes an ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, I think over time, it's like you start to very gradually and without having to talk about it at all, you just start to each do the things that contribute best and most effectively to the process if you're sharing a process. And by this point, when we first started working together, we both did everything. Maybe I would do a thing and wouldn't do it half as well as she would. And so there's this gradual handing over that is flowing in both directions, helping you to collectively refine something and simplify something and streamline something. And that's, I think, very much in the nature of collaboration. As far as doing it all and parenting and each of us having our own interests, it's very much more like how many balls can we juggle? Is it three? Is it five? And that is like this process of both flow and control that has its limits probably, but it also has its creative moments.
So, what's next for you, Ito, as you work through all of this and this both creation and changing materials into glass and working with artists from all over the world? How do you see yourself in the next year or so? I know you're probably going to continue doing this, but in your own evolution What have you
Mm.
witnessed and what do you see coming forward?
To be honest, as a parent now, a 12 and a 14-year-old, and a lot of my present thinking is focused around just getting my kids through the next 5 or 6 years, and then I've sort of done my job. I know parenting goes on forever, but I'm obviously thinking about how to pay for college or what my kids are going to do with all this AI craziness. So there's a lot of my thinking is going towards, I have to say, we're living in a very fragile and challenging moment. I tend to pick up a lot of that stuff. I've stopped reading the news because I think I'm too sensitive to and just start to overthink things. So I'm just trying to protect the home nest, continue the music series, which I think does some work in the community that is in a positive direction. I think we're all coping to some extent right now. And so how do we do it sustainably for ourselves and how do we build for the next thing? I don't know. The one new thing I have on the horizon is, and I've done this a little bit in the past, but I've been working with the Iron Horse, which is a venue in Northampton, and the chef there, O'Brien, who used to run Sierra Grill. We're gonna do our first food pop-up pretty soon, and I'm going to make these Iraqi Jewish sandwiches that my family is obsessed with. Been making them forever. It's like a fried eggplant and hard-boiled egg that's been boiled for like 10 hours and tahini and like three sauces and all these vegetables. It's like a party in your mouth. My brother has been doing this out west. He has a Jewish Iraqi bakery cafe and he's been doing these pop-ups, and it's very exciting for me to start one here in Northampton, mostly because I think it's an incredible thing to eat. Also, it's a nice through line for me as an immigrant, as someone who is still struggling with who I am here in Western Mass in New England, but it helps to do these little things.
I've experienced eating one of those incredible
Oh, you
sandwiches
have? Okay.
at one of the concerts. I believe you made them at Bombex when they're doing some of the outdoor shows, or was that something different? I knew you were
It was similar, yes. I
similar.
did a food pop-up once at Bombex. That was more of like a trad meze thing, and this is
Ah,
I don't think I did sabich that time. Sabich is very
mm,
special. Honestly, most Israeli food is actually Arabic food, right? And
mm.
we don't really have the right to call it Israeli food. It's food that was made and eaten in the Ottoman Empire for hundreds of years. And sabich is actually specifically this Jewish Iraqi cuisine that came together over hundreds of years of Jews living in Baghdad, and then came to Israel when 1949, when the state was created, and has been sort of rediscovered by the world at large. The only thing it doesn't have going for it is its name. It has a terrible name. Um,
How do you spell it?
that's the problem, is when you see it written, it's Sabich, which,
Mhm.
because it's a sandwich, you want to say sabich,
Yes.
which sounds terrible. And the actual version say no one knows how to pronounce because it's the ch sound, right? The sabich. So it's not like pizza or falafel. It's just like came into the world with these perfect names, and they had no problem finding an entrance in every street corner.
Mm.
But Sabich has a tough climb because, unlike other immigrants who can change their name when they come to the country if it sounds inappropriate or something, Sabich cannot change its name.
Mm.
So we have to present it for the marvel that it is and how people do the sound.
Well, and I believe there's something beautiful about learning something new. I mean, this seems to be the theme of the entire segment here, is that when you come
Mm,
in with a curiosity and then you try it, right? You try to
mm,
speak the name. You taste what it tastes like. You listen and feel this new sound cue, this audible synchrony that's coming in through your ears and through your body. The way that you're growing, and I love that you're not changing the name. And if it tastes anything like what you put together at Bombex, but I know it's different, the care and the quality and the attention that you bring into, again, another alchemizing type of thing like cooking, which is also my favorite thing to do too, is that
mhm.
there's in that preparation and that care and that love, you can taste it. It actually comes through in the food. And I'm so excited about that. And I can't wait till that happens because I will definitely be in line for one of those sabich. Sabich.
Sabich, you nailed it.
Wow. Amazing. So
I think
cool.
I might have a little bell at the register, and we'll ring it every time someone says it correctly.
Oh, that, I think that's like, it's positive reinforcement. I think it's great. This has just been such an exciting conversation. And I know there are just so many levels in which you put together this kind of meaning that brings so many people together. And there's such a way that you invite them. This is like these are all invitations for people.
Mm,
And I love that you create a place and a space and a container for people to be invited and are welcomed. and then entertained in some way with the way in which you present. And it's not necessarily entertainment. It's just like welcome and enjoy. If someone leaves a Secret Planet show changed in a small but meaningful way, what do you hope stays with them on the car ride home?
Whatever feeling they came out of the show with that they found to be important, that's what it should be. Sometimes it's very ineffable. It's not something you can even describe, right? The way that hearing something can just kind of rip you in half or go right in there somewhere and just do something that
Yes.
that makes you then you're walk out of the show and you're bawling. Whatever that is being human, as opposed to scrolling on a phone or going through your default mode during the day, doing the things you do. We all do those things to survive, and there's nothing wrong with those things, and they're very important. But we have to have these moments where we break through into something else. Let's hope we all find them together. That's what we're here for.
Well, Edo Mor, your work dissolves the lines we've inherited between genres, cultures, and even art forms. And I love how it invites us to be more generous in the way we bring each other together. And I thank you so much for inviting us into your story and the spirit of Secret Planet in your creative work. It's been such a joy speaking with you today.
With you too, Donabelle. You're an incredible host, and thank you for inviting me to this conversation. I do want to close by saying that I'm just very grateful for the community we have here, where we can all go together. It takes a village to do all these things. I'm really happy you're in our village, so thank you.
Thank you. That's one of the nicest things I've ever heard. Yes, we're going to just keep hope and love alive. Thanks for being here. I hope something from today's conversation stayed with you or gave you a new way to look at things. That awareness, that pause, that's where things start to shift. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who might need it. You can learn more about my work and what's coming up at sonorous.light.com. And you can follow me on Instagram at To Hum Is Human. Until next time, keep humming.